Hi everyone, how are you today? I hope you are doing well. Welcome to the next installment of Best Practices and Best Practical Tips for Parents. I was inspired to make this particular video because of something I experienced a little earlier in the week. And I was standing in a school waiting to meet with someone. I was just standing out in the hallway. And there was a mom that was walking up the hallway with her daughter, and she was just screaming at her. She said, I can't believe you're so stupid. I've been working with you. Why are you so stupid? I can't believe you belong to me. You're just so stupid. You should have done much better on that test. What is wrong with you? And I was like, wow. When I heard her saying this to her daughter, that just really vexed something in my spirit. And so as they were walking and they got closer, her daughter just burst out in tears and then she ran to the restroom. And I'm sure she was hurt. And so, her mom said, well, hurry up because we need to go. And I thought, wow. So she and I were standing there, and I said, I have to just share something with her. And so I spoke to her and just said hello. And I said, are you doing okay? She said, no, I had a horrible day at work, and then I have to come here and pick her up and see how stupid she is. And I thought, wow. I said, can I encourage you? And she said, encourage me? I said, yes. I said, first of all, I understand having a rough day at work. And I said, secondly, I've worked with students and I've also presented parenting workshops, and something that I shared quite a bit. I said, and I believe it'll help you. And I said to her, I said, can I suggest that when you reprimand her, reprimand the action or what you disapproved of and not reprimand her? I said, because what happened was, I said, I know she was embarrassed. Of course, we both saw her. We knew she was embarrassed. And I said, and I know you didn't, mean to embarrass her, but I get it. Sometimes it does happen. And she said, well, you know what? She said, I was very angry when I came in here because I had a horrible day. And she said, then I had to come in and see what she did on, how she scored on her test. And I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. And she said, you know what? She said, I believe God sent you here to share this with me. She said, because you're right, that was ugly how I spoke with her. And she said, since I had such a horrible day at work, I took it out on her. And that wasn't right. And she said, I promise you, when she comes out of the restroom, I'm going to apologize to her. And I said, oh, I said, that is so wonderful. I said, thank you for being so receptive, of this information. And she said, no, thank you so much. She said, I so appreciate it. And so as her daughter walked out of the restroom, she kind of met her and she put her arm around her and then they walked out the door. And so this just reminded me of how we don't want to crush the spirit. We want to encourage, our children, even when they don't do things that we like. We want to reprimand them, though, but reprimand what they did, but not necessarily, crush their spirit and reprimand them as a person, right? And earlier on, too, I remember hearing a quote by, her name is, I want to make sure I get this right, it's Hak Jahan Moon. Hak Jahan Moon. And she is known as the mother of peace. And I remember her quotes. She said that as parents, we hold our children's heart in our hand. And when I heard that quote, that really touched me because I know that we don't want to drop the heart. We don't want to wound the heart of our children that we hold in our hands. I just thought that was a beautiful quote. And so we have to make sure when we do, reprimand, we reprimand in grace, And we reprimand in love. That is so important to do that. All right. So I hope this helps someone. Thank you so much for listening. Take care. God bless. I'll see you soon. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.